Right, good evening, ladies and gents. It's 6 o'clock. We're going to get the meeting of the Cabinet at South Ribble Borough Council up and running. This meeting is also being live streamed via YouTube and the Council's website. I'd like to firstly thank the team here at the Methodist Church for their wonderful hospitality and their assistance with getting tonight's meeting up and running. Quickly, some housekeeping. The toilets are outside the room to the right-hand side. There are no fire drills expected. If the fire alarm does go off, please leave by the nearest fire exit and at the back and the side of the building and congregate on Station Road by the car park. And could everyone please switch their mobile phones to silent if you haven't already done so. For those that don't know me, my name is Councillor Paul Foster, Councillor for Bamber Bridge, and I'm the Leader of the Council and the Chair of this meeting this evening. Councillor Mick Titherington is the Vice Chair of the Cabinet and Deputy Leader of the Council, as well as being a Cabinet Member for Health and Wellbeing. Mick, can you just show everyone where you sat, please? Just indicate where you sat. Thanks. Cheers. We do hope that those who've seen the displays at the back of the room helpful, and it's showing the work of the Council and some of the schemes that we're currently on with, which has been, by the way, an incredibly difficult period over the last 12-18 months due to the pandemic. It is encouraging to see some members of the public here with us tonight at our first ever pilot meeting, which is part of our initiative to hold the Cabinet in the community at various community venues across South Ribble Borough. We aim to make the Cabinet more visible within the communities of South Ribble and encourage greater participation and engagement with members of the public in all of our decision making. The members of the Cabinet are present with me and also our senior officers required to support the meeting. Could I therefore please introduce, well I've quickly mentioned, Councillor Mick Titherington, the Deputy Leader of the Council, Councillor Aniela Belinsky-Gelder, the Cabinet Member for Communities, Social Justice and Wealth Building. There's Aniela. Councillor Bill Evans, the Cabinet Member for Planning, Business Support and Regeneration. There's Bill. Councillor Matthew Tomlinson, Cabinet Member for Finance, Property and Assets. There's Matt. Gary Hall, our Chief Executive, Chris Moyster, our Monitoring Officer, and finally, last but not least, Claire and Matt, who are our Democratic Service Officers. I'd also like to introduce Carol and Donna, our British Sign Language interpreters this evening, for helping make our event as accessible as possible. One of the key features of the meeting is the public question time, which is on the agenda, which is for the members of the public in attendance to have the opportunity to ask questions for any members of the Cabinet. And we're going to do that for 45 to 60 minutes. After this item, we'll move on to consider a number of the reports that are actually on the agenda for the Cabinet to consider. Reports will be presented by the relevant Cabinet member, after which I will bring the item into Cabinet. I will then invite comments from other members not on Council, and then members of the public will then be asked if they have any questions. Please could I ask anyone within the audience to indicate when they wish to speak by putting their hand up, and we'll then invite them to come forward to the microphone at the table and desk at the front here. Finally, we have placed some feedback forms on the chairs, and we ask you all to fill those feedback forms, positive and negative, when you're finished, so we can make these meetings as inclusive and productive as possible. Right, without further ado, let's proceed with the agenda. So the first agenda item is agenda item 2, which is the public question time. Do any of the members of the public have any questions they wish to ask any members of myself or the Cabinet? Lady there on the right. Would you like to come forward, madam? Good evening and welcome.
Thank you very much. So much for coming to the area that I am also Neighbourhood Watch Officer for, and I live in Withytrees Avenue. And there'll be some of the councillors here who will have heard from me. My name is Bernadette Loeffler, and I have written to councillors relating to the subjects that I just want to raise tonight, if I may please, and ensure that it is clear how the neighbours in the Withytrees area are feeling about the ongoing work that is happening in the area. So if I first of all may start with Withy Grove Park, a superb and I mean that, superb initiative from yourselves in making it a sports hub. Absolutely superb. I'm fully behind that. I have no problems with that because South Whittle is so desperately short of sporting facilities, and it's so important that we get the young people out there doing sport, and I hope older generations as well, with all the different levels that can be done. So I have no problems with that. My problem, living on Withertrees Avenue, is the lorries and the fact that I know that on your website you have stated that vehicles should not be using Withertrees Avenue as a cut-through at speed, because the speed there is 20 miles an hour. And because I actually live on the Withertrees Avenue, I'm able to observe discreetly without making any public acknowledgement of what's going on. So that's first of all, so that's what's happening there. And another big concern we have is that the narrowness of the road as it comes out to Station Road with Smith Street. Very narrow entrance there, and these huge dumper trucks and delivery lorries with materials are coming up that road. And it must cause a problem at this junction here because it is so narrow. And then as they come onto the road to Withertrees Avenue, they then speed up, forgetting that there are junctions leading to the park from Poplar Grove and Poplar Avenue. And yes, we have had one incident, but it was a few years ago where a boy was in October, because the children do not look when they are crossing the roads. My concern is awareness. And as I say, it's important that it is noted that I'm here for that purpose. Withy Grove Park should be a green flag park. No question of it. It is superb. It's a beautiful park. It's got many variations to it relating to the woodlands, grass, open land, ponds, etc., as any park would have. Plus, it has the best playground area anywhere in the borough. There's no doubt about it. The Bamber Bridge leisure facility for the children is superb. But why are we not a green flag? I ask the question. Because we should be a green flag, and we need to work hard to be a green flag to raise the profile of this borough in the community and across the, what I would call the national picture of green flag parks. So really and truly, I feel we need to do that. And another of my little niggle, personal niggle, is litter. I've always had this thing about litter. And I think I've mentioned in an email that I have passed to yourselves relating to the shortage of litter bins in the park. You could say, well, no matter, even if they're there, they're not going to be used. That's not the point. The point is that the children and people come from the shops and they walk straight into the park from my side, Withertrees Avenue, and just literally there's no bin there for. So it's a little thing, but it is important if we're to move forward and to be seen. Used to have wardens in the park who used to go around to clear the litter. I haven't seen anyone for a long time. So it's something just to please be aware of, and perhaps at some stage to look at more thoroughly and do on that. Moving on, my second area are the developments taking place.
Bernadette, do you mind if we talk about the park with you first then, quickly?
Yes, of course. Fine.
Then it's hot off the press and then we can move on to your next issue. So we agree wholeheartedly with you that it should be a green flag, and we are working tirelessly to get the green flag as well, and the continued improvements that we're making to the park, we will get there, and we'll get there as quickly as we possibly can, and we'll make sure that we report back as where we are with progress, and I'll make sure that we publish something very quickly on. We desperately want it to be a green flag park. We completely agree. With the additional bins, we'll look into that tomorrow. I'll give you my assurance that we'll have officers down tomorrow looking again at the provision of the bins on the park, and where there are additional bins required, we'll put them in.
Thank you very much.
And because you're with the Bamber Bridge Councillor here, I remember Tommy Hanson worked tirelessly on the park there for a number of years, and we do encourage a particular number of children, and mixed portfolios bringing in the sports hub now, so it's going to be used even more. So we'll look at the bins. You have our assurances on that. You'll see people sorting that. As for the track, we totally get the issue. We've had issues, have we not, on Withertrees Avenue for donkey's years with the traffic. That we have engaged historically with Lancashire County Council. We will again, because whatever anybody says, it's a rat run.
Yes.
It is used as a rat run, and it's a dangerous rat run. in particular when you're mentioning the vehicles, and any council-owned or council-controlled vehicles should be abiding by all the regulations. When we start looking at the deliveries for the sports hub in particular, and I'll speak to Councillor Mick Tithrington separately about this, we'll have to check the planning conditions there, because if they are our vehicles, I would be disappointed if we were using articulated lorries down that street when we know the challenges we have locally with that, so we'll look into that. And if they are controlled and they're working on council contracts, we should be diverting those away from Withy.
It's safety more than anything
I
else.
totally agree.
Safety.
I would like to see, personally, restrictions on that street. It's a small street with bungalows, isn't it?
It is.
And homes and children.
It is.
You should not have articulated
We have a
lorries using
20-mile
that street.
speed limit and a 7.5 tonne weight limit on the road,
Yeah,
which is not being adhered to, basically.
but I understand that, so we will take that point up for you.
Thank you.
Have any colleagues, Mick?
Well, I mean, just to reiterate what the leader said, and thank you for the complimentary things that you've said about Withy Grove, because, I mean, when I go up there, I mean, it's probably one of the most used parks that I can see, and I visit a number of parks. And I think we can do something with the bins. We're striving to get a green flag status. I think in relation to the contractors, you know, from tomorrow we can contact them and make sure that they are taking on board what you've said to us and making sure that they are adhering to everything that we want, whether there are conditions there or not. That's what we will insist on the contractors. So hopefully we'll see some action. I mean, I know that there is there's a history to it, isn't there? I mean, but certainly we can do something in relation to the contractors and council vehicles.
I agree, sir. There is a history to it. However, in the last year, you will all know that there has now been a considerable increase in the developments in the area, which is my second point. Brindle Road, which is at the other end of Weathertrees Avenue, currently is having 2 new housing estates built on there, and the increase in traffic will happen. There's no two ways about it. It's human nature. You'll always take the shortest route, regardless of whatever anyone says. Even across a piece of grass, you'll always take the shortest route. It's common, you know, it's just human nature. And there will be an increase in traffic. And I have suggested on an email to yourselves that possible calming measures should be looked at for the purposes of this particular crossroads of Withy Grove and Poplar Avenue, Poplar Grove, where we have this running across to the children. Even tonight there was a young lad on a bicycle just performing aerobatics or acrobatics, stupidly, and no care in the world for traffic that would be going along that road. So that's that. So with these 2 developments which have suddenly increased, there is further the level crossing at Hospital Inn is getting increasingly under pressure of traffic and holds up, and I've been held up there for at least 15 minutes before now because of the sheer volume of traffic that is waiting to cross in conjunction with all this construction traffic. So I don't know if any of you are actually looking into all of this and having a look at it, but it's getting worse.
Right. So what we've got, Bernadette, is we've got Jonathan Node, who's the Director of Planning for South Ribble and Chorley. Tomorrow, Jonathan will write to Lancashire County Council Highways and we'll ask the senior officers to come down and we'll start a full detailed review with the County Council because we're aware of the challenges. They've been there for donkey's years, and you're right, additional development is having an additional impact, isn't it? So what we can do is take away from here. Jonathan will lead this and we'll report back in the future.
And I have just one final point to ask: is have you got any further developments that you are all considering for the Brindle Road area that will have a further impact on the Weathertrees Avenue?
Not that I'm aware of, but Jonathan? No, not that we were aware of. But that doesn't, Bernadette, stop developers placing any proposals forward, but I don't think there's no land there. Jonathan is designated currently for additional housing anyway.
So where that lovely house is that always gets beautifully decorated at Christmas, which we all know about, presumably we'll see in the newspapers, immediately next door to that there is some spare land, which then leads onto a field behind, which is exactly the same principle as happened further up the road where farm was taken down. And just something I'm aware of, and that people have said, is there anything happening there?
Not that we're aware of.
Thank you very much.
Aniela, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I'd just like to let you know, because I'm the cabinet member of the neighbourhoods, which is the litter bin part of your question, and I just think you ought to know that we're going to do an audit of all the litter bins. The director's just spoken to me this evening, and he said we've got 1,100 litter bins in the whole borough. And as you've said, people are changing the way that we use the borough because housing estates have changed. So I think bins need mapping. We need to see if the footfall's the same as perhaps what it used to be when it was put there. But just so you know, the rota, the 100 bins are emptied every day, and they're on the main strips. And the other bins, which is, well, you haven't even got a bin where you're talking about, but the other bins on the less mainstream, they're emptied every 2 to 4 days, or twice a week. They're emptied twice a week, just so you know.
Thank you very much. However, I will go back on that again. That's a fantastic statistic. But if I tell you that Withy Grove Park has got 4 bins, and at the moment they're on the exits and in, how can I put it, areas that are on the main pathways, but not necessarily in the right places. It's only because I walk there every day and I just see, and that's why I'm able to make that observation.
Okay, thanks, Bernadette. Thank you very much for your questions, Bernadette.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Good evening all. Welcome to Bamber Bridge, and great to see you all. Bernie has actually asked my question, so well done, Bernie. So I'm Jeff Cooper-Thwaite, County Councillor, or new County Councillor for Bamber Bridge and Lost Call, I should tell you, and I came armed with your question, Bernie, amongst others. But there is a direct following point as well. It is really regarding the HGVs that are trundling up and down the likes of Withy Trees Avenue, amongst others. So and I can tell you, Paul, you're right in that if it is in the plan and in the agreement that really these HGVs shouldn't be going up and down Withy Trees Avenue. Now I can tell you that it is in the plan because we've looked it up. And also, it's not every HGV, it's only 1 or 2. But my quick question is, and take it away by all means, what are you going to do to enforce HGVs not using residential roads? Our residents agree and love the idea of youth facilities, but they don't like HGVs down their residential roads. That's it, quick and simple.
The answer, Jeff, is what are you going to do about it, because it's a county highways function. So we need to work together, and this is one of the things that I know frustrates a lot of our local residents, is the fact that we live in a 2-tier authority where the footpaths are responsibilities of one council and the road is the responsibility of the other. We need to work together. It's a chronic problem, Jeff, and enforcement's a problem across the board. And I think the only true way of enforcement is prohibiting the vehicles from using the roads in the first place. And what we are as a local authority, as a borough council, you know, Station Road's another example where really and truthfully should these HGVs be trundling down Station Road, because that's one of the reasons the A6 bypass was built in the first place, was to take the traffic off. So again, Jonathan's going to take this away, Jeff, and we really do need to get together with county and see if we can, you know, we need to challenge the norm, because I think Bamber Bridge most certainly needs some prohibiting HGVs, Arctic lorries using the roads around here. So, we'll contact you tomorrow.
I agree,
and we'll sort it out.
I'm willing and ready to meet. Okay, all the best. Thank you.
Cheers, Jeff. Thank you. Any other questions, anybody? Any other questions from anyone? No? Warren, you look like you're itching to say something. No? Right. So there's no more questions. We will therefore move straight to the agenda, colleagues, which is good. Right. And thanks for your questions. And Bernadette and Jeff will get back in touch and we'll get some responses. Right, moving on. Right, to members of the public, I do slightly apologise because the agenda can be slightly dry and we do have a format that we have to follow. So, agenda item 3 is any apologies for absence. Do we have any apologies for absence? No, we don't, because we're all sat here now together. Declarations of interest. Do any members of the Cabinet have any declarations of any interests? Okay, thank you. Agenda item 5, the minutes of the last meeting. The minutes of the last meeting held on Wednesday, the 15th of September 2021 was attached to the agenda pack. I am happy to propose that that's signed as a correct record. Do any members of the Cabinet have any comments on the minutes? Seconded by Mick. Any members not in Cabinet have any comments on the minutes? Any members of the public? Okay. All those in favour? Unanimous. They are approved. Okay. Agenda item 6, the notice of executive decisions and the Cabinet forward plan. Now, this agenda item is only found online on the Council's website because it's a live document and it's literally updated on a daily basis. There's a number of significant key decisions on there that the Cabinet and the Council will be looking to take over the next 6 months, and the executive decisions. I'm not planning to go through them all. It's basically there. It's a public document. Do any colleagues on the Cabinet have any comments or questions on it? Any members not on Cabinet have any questions about it? Members of the public? Okay, that's for noting. Agenda item 7 is the Peer Challenge 2021. Bear with me. So, for members of the public, the Peer Challenge is where the council, it's not a formal inspection, but it's where the council invites in associates and partners and members of the local government association to come in and review the performance of the council in a non-confrontational way. It's a friendly review, a friendly scrutiny of how the council's functioning across the board, and it's called a peer review, a peer challenge. We asked for this, the Cabinet asked for this to happen. They normally happen approximately every 4 years, I think, for each authority, and we haven't had a peer review for a number of years. And despite the fact we were still in the pandemic, we did ask the Local Government Association to arrange the peer review. The report is then now published. Basically, it's really pleasing to see. I think we can all agree, those that know the council, the council at South Ribbles had its challenges, shall we say, over the last 4 or 5 years, and there are significant improvements made now, and the council's, for want of a better word, back on the straight and narrow, and we are functioning as we should be functioning now and delivering the services for our local community. The peers did, however, come back and asked us to look at 8 specific areas to move forward with that journey. That was about embedding a culture of good governance, and what that means is there are a number of changes that the council has had to adopt with its governance structure to ensure that we're acting legally and appropriate at all times. So it's just ensuring that they get embedded in every area of the local authority. We need to provide fuller clarity on our ambitions for shared services. So again, we have a collaboration agreement with our friends in Chorley, and there's a number of back of house in the main services that we share with Chorley now. And what the peers would like us to do is just be more specific in what our plans are now for moving forward in the short term, i.e. over the next 2 to 5 years. They need a more detailed programme from us from the future work that we're looking to deliver on the project side of things. So again, there's a number of very big strategic projects that the council are looking to deliver. New leisure facilities, you've seen the new sports hubs here in Bamber Bridge. We've started building council houses. We're building an extra 73 apartment, I think it is, extra care scheme in Leyland. There's all sorts going on across the borough. So again, the peers just want to see some more detail around the strategic planning for the delivery of that. On the back of that, we are looking closely at how we can afford to deliver all that. There's about £50 million worth of investment required in the next 2 years that Councillor Tomlinson is working through so that we can deliver these projects, and we're just working through that. And then some internal stuff for the Chief Executive about organisational development and best management practice. I'm going to leave the community hubs to the end, Daniela, in a second. And then, as most people know, the final recommendation was about political engagement. South Ribble we are a minority administration, i.e. we do not have a majority, and we're working on supplying confidence agreements. So when you've got such a closely political parties where we are, there's no outright majority. What the peers like to look to see us do is how we're going to work together collaboratively. And that's always a challenge to say the word, but also a challenge to get everyone working together. And then finally, the community hubs. And what we've introduced in South Ribble is, and one of the reasons we're here today, is that we felt historically there's been a lack of engagement with our local communities. The council was sat in West Paddock, the council does what the council does, and it was challenging to get the views and the opinions and the buy-in of our local communities. So we developed the new community hubs, and we do not dictate to our local councillors and hubs how they work. They all do it differently. We have 5 of these hubs across the borough. The one here is Bamber Bridge, Lostock Hall and Walton Dale, and that is significantly different in the way that it acts and engages with its local community. And I know Sam, the officer, he sat there in the work that she does with us, and that's different to what they do in Penwitham. That's not saying Penwitham's wrong, it's not saying that we're right, it's saying what the local councils are doing are engaging with the communities in very different ways, depending on what the needs of those particular communities are, because all our communities across South Ribble are quite diverse. And so they've asked just for some additional information on how we're going to take that forward to the next step. We've accepted all the recommendations from the peers, and then within the report there is an action plan for us to deliver basically within the next 6 months. The peers then come back, look at the work that we've done and give us a clean bill of health. That's where we're basically at. So, do colleagues have any questions? And Daniela, you want to say something on the community hubs, don't you?
Thanks, Chair. I think we should be really proud, actually, of the results of the peer review. The outcomes, as well as the being really positive about the action plan moving forward, carrying on affecting change with the community in mind. I met with the panel 3 times as a member of the cabinet member for communities on my own with them, as well as meeting with the chairs of the community hubs. And I feel as though the members and my own excitement for the community hubs is represented in this report, which is really nice to see. After the review, we can clearly see that our new approach has been fully endorsed by the peer panel. In fact, it's worth noting that the peer panel invited me to Strasbourg in the European Commission next year to present the model, the community hub model that we're trying. And I'm really proud to have been asked by the peer panel for that. Our ambitions to create new autonomous, as Paul's said, member-led hubs, where members become the executive decision makers, bureaucracy is reduced to increase local democratic decision making and increase local empowerment. And that is the direction that I really want to see the hubs go. I'm not the executive decision maker over the project plans which go into them anymore. It's up to each hub and each chair and the members of those hubs to make those decisions. And I'm extremely pleased that the peers not only fully understood the model, told us that we're brave, but also encouraged us to run with it for as long as we can. And I'm looking forward to seeing the hubs develop and evolve, and they will be evaluated next year, over the next few months. Thank you.
No, thanks, Daniela. Great stuff. The hubs are working really well, and it's not top down, as you say. It's bottom up. The hubs do and engage how they see fit with their local communities, which is great. Any other comments, colleagues, on the peer review?
Just to sort of really congratulate Councillor Aniela Belinsky-Gelder, because the report and certainly the conversations that I had with the peer review were highly were praised highly what we've been done with the hubs, and I think we all agree that that's been led very forcibly by Councillor Belinsky-Gelder, and I think she needs, well, she's been rewarded if that is the if that is what you would describe it. But certainly being invited to Strasbourg to address others there, then certainly they must have thought something of it. So, but on the wider review, I think it's largely what we expected. We have been making good progress on certain issues, and on other issues we know that we need to sort of work harder, and that's what we'll be concentrating on. And I think, as has been said by the leader, we need to sort of embed some of the practices that we've introduced in improving the way we operate. We need to make sure that they are embedded. But all in all, I think it's well, I think it's a peer review. We got what we asked for in terms of how they, delivered their findings.
Thanks, Mick. Yeah, look, I've said this publicly yesterday, Angela, at the scrutiny meeting, that I wasn't convinced to start with about the bottom-up approach on the community hubs, and I had to be talked round. I happily and publicly say I was proven wrong, and it's great. Sometimes that's great, and it is, and it is the right way to go about it. Matthew.
Thank you. And I obviously welcome the results of the peer report. These are experienced councillors from other parts of the country, experienced council staff who come and take a look at what we're doing. And I don't know about, I think Councillor Titherington said we got what we asked for. I'm not sure we asked for this report, but it's very, very pleasing. Amongst all the exciting stuff that Councillor Belinsky-Gelder's doing, which, I mean, to try and illustrate it, it means if you're in the Western parishes, and I see we've got some councillors here from the Western parishes, they were no longer part of the controlling group, but they will have control over what their hub delivers in their neighbourhoods without any interference, as long as it's legal, decent and all those other things, without any interference from the cabinet member. We're really giving local members the power to deliver things in their area that they think that's best. On the flip side to that, I think it's really important to acknowledge the more boring stuff that we've been doing, bringing some stability to the council, bringing some rigour to decision making to make sure that the decisions the council makes are, you might not agree they're the right decisions, but they are taken in the right way so that everybody can see the paper trail, everybody can understand why those decisions have been made. I think that's really important, and that's reflected in the report too. The other most pleasing thing for me, when you have any sort of inspection, and this isn't an inspection, it's our colleagues coming and giving us their thoughts and advice, the actual recommendations or action plan that they've put forward, for me, whilst they're not quick wins, because you don't embed things, one of the recommendations is that we embed some of the changes that we've made. You don't do those quickly, but the recommendations they've made, you can see quite clearly how we can get on and deliver them. And I think that's really pleasing too.
Absolutely, Matthew, thank you. And it was the first peer review that the LGA undertook post-COVID as well, which is interesting. And they also did it remotely, which is massively challenging, but it was they completed it and it was successful. Any other comments from cabinet members before I open this up? Just quickly, one of the things I do, we're being asked to accept the report as one of the recommendations. We're also being asked to approve the action plan and adopt the action plan. What I can report to colleagues on the cabinet is that the scrutiny committee, the council scrutiny committee last night looked at this in great detail, and they provided 5 additional recommendations for us to consider. And as usual, I'm going to read those out and ask cabinets to adopt these as formal recommendations as well. The scrutiny committee welcomed the report and the outcome of the peer review and looked forward to working together with us on delivering the action plan. Number 2, they were grateful for the commitment to develop clear measures and that the progress monitoring reports were presented to Cabinet and to the Scrutiny Committee. Then in number 3, they asked for that recommendation 3, which is the programme plan for future works and political priorities, be strengthened to reflect that capacity requirements will be assessed and put in place to ensure the delivery of the corporate projects. Number 4, they then said they were grateful for the offer of the employee survey results being made available to the scrutiny committee once completed. And finally, they suggested that examples of best practice adopted across the South Ribble and Chorley councils as a result of shared services be presented to a future shared services joint committee meeting. Are we happy as a cabinet to accept all those and adopt those recommendations? Okay. Right. Are there any members not on committee that would like to raise any questions about the peer review or any points? Damien?
Thank you, Chair. It's on page 38, and the last couple of paragraphs. There's a point raised by the review that points out that the capital programme will rise from £3 million in 2019-2020 to £24.4 million in 2023-24. It goes on to say that the Council is planning to support this programme through a mixed use of reserves and borrowing. And it suggests that the Council should consider the prudential borrowing strategy, given its plans to make extensive use of its borrowing powers, as this will naturally impact upon the Council's revenue budget and minimum revenue position. So I think it's suggesting that the borrowing levels will go up substantially. And leading on to page 39, the second paragraph there, it's about the Treasury management strategy. It says that the Council is risk averse around its counterparty listing, and it would invite the Council to discuss alternative investments over longer time periods. I think what it's getting at is we're looking to substantially increase the borrowings, and we've got cash reserves there earning minimum interest. And as you'll probably be aware, we're in an inflationary environment at the moment. Inflation is expected to probably be go up to 4.5% this year. I imagine the interest on the cash deposits is probably less than half that amount. And I'm just wondering if we need to consider alternative investments that might at least keep up with inflation going forward. And bearing in mind that we're looking to substantially increase the borrowings over the next few years, as you'll probably be aware, usually when inflation goes up, interest rates tend to follow. So my concern is we're going to go into this period of substantial borrowing when we could be looking at interest rates rising significantly over the same period. So we've got a situation where we've got cash balances effectively giving a negative return because inflation is higher. And on the other side, we're looking to increase borrowing substantially and interest rates are going to go up, which leads on to the comment that how sustainable is this approach in terms of affordability. I just wondered if you could make some comments on the increased borrowings and if you consider any alternative investments that at least keep up with inflation. Thank you.
So just before I invite Matt in, there's on the Treasury management strategy, that's in the behest of you, Damien, because it's a governance committee look at that in detail, and I think you review that twice a year, and then you bring recommendations back to the full council and the council adopt them. I do agree that it has been slightly risk averse over the last few years, well, a number of years, I think about 14 years since the Icelandic bank fiasco. And maybe it is now time for the governance committee to be looking at in more detail and bringing back, some different recommendations for us to consider. But what I would suggest is the as inflation does rise and interest rates rise, then the returns that we're going to get from our investments are going to rise as well, because the returns from the banks, the interest rates of the banks should naturally rise as well. On the borrowing side of things, Matt, do you want to come in on that?
Yeah, well, just first of all, to go back, I mean, I was the cabinet member when the Icelandic banks collapsed. I was the cabinet member for finance, and like just about every other public authority in the country, we had money in Icelandic banks. We did eventually get the money back, but it was a real worry for a long time. And I don't think anybody would be surprised that since then, local authorities, police authorities, fire authorities, any public body that's got any cash has been very wary about putting it anywhere except in AAA rated banks. And people, not just me, people have scars on the back from the Icelandic gamble. We were getting 6, 7, 8% return from Iceland, and so people were saying, why would you not put money there? And we all found out why you probably shouldn't if somebody's giving you a return that's too good to be true. But 14 years on, this is a perfect example of why you have a peer review. Someone else from outside comes and looks at the things that you do from day to day and says, have you thought about this? And I agree with Paul and yourself that it might now be time to look a little bit more creatively at what we do with the money that we have in the bank. In terms of the borrowing, we are ambitious. You know, we are ambitious for what we want to deliver for our residents. We want to build an extra care scheme that's already been referred to in Leyland, 73 beds for older people who need a little bit more care. We know there's a massive demand. The county council have told us there's a demand in surplus of 200 for these units that just don't exist in South Ribble, and obviously we want to build 73. There is a cost to that. We'll have to find the money. We don't have that money just sat, you know, in the bank or behind the back of the settee waiting to be spent, so we will have to look at how we fund that. But again, that will produce a yield. There will be some income because the people that go to live there will pay rent. And I hate analogies where you try and simplify things, so forgive me if that's exactly what I'm going to do. But it's a bit like taking out a mortgage. You know, we want to build these flats that give these people the security and the quality of housing that they deserve. There is a cost to that, but we know for a fact, and we've seen these built in other parts of Lancashire, 96, 97% occupancy rates, as near to a guaranteed income stream as you could get. And we would anticipate building that income stream to pay back the loan. The other big project that we want to deliver is to build a new leisure centre somewhere in the borough. Our leisure centres are getting older, probably not going to last forever. But again, that will cost money, but it will cost money that we can spread out over a 30 or 40 year period. And again, we would expect some income. Do we do it all through borrowing? Do we do it through releasing some of the current assets? What we've done since we took over in the last 2 years, we've almost completed now a complete asset review. I know other people have had ambitions to do that in the past, but we've done it. Not only do we now know everything that we own, which shockingly we didn't know before, but we now know what the condition of it is because we've done a condition review. Now that we've done that, we can look at them all and say, do we really need this? Do we need this plot of land? Do we need this building? How does it contribute to what the council are trying to deliver? And it may well be that we do generate some capital receipts through sales that we can then use to finance these projects. So I don't argue actually with anything that you say. That's exactly why you have a peer review. And it may well be time to look at things slightly different. But I hope that explains for people who aren't intimately engaged with what the council does, why we might be looking to borrow some money in the coming years.
Just a final point. Thank you for the explanation. I suppose what the peer reviews, I suppose what it's getting at when it says how sustainable is this approach, it will be in terms of affordability, is that I suppose the concern is if interest rates do go up and we've borrowed a substantial amount, it's unlikely that the the rental income that you're referring to will actually cover the interest costs. And I think that's probably what the peer review's referring to. We could end up in a situation where borrowings are so huge that the interest bill isn't being covered by the income coming in. Just maybe that's something we should bear in mind before we borrow too much. Thank you.
We do. So just let's be clear about this, Damien. Every single project has to stand alone. It has to be signed off by the statutory officers. There's value for money and that it's affordable. And you know, all the schemes, and you see them, you've voted for some, you voted against others, you know, they have to be viable. And all the information will be in front of us when we make that decision. What I would say is, I think luckily, a number of the larger capital schemes, Matthew's bringing forward in the next 6 months. So hopefully there's not too much of a huge impact on interest rates. I think we'd both agree, we're not expecting interest rates to suddenly rise very quickly. However, through the Treasury Management papers that we've seen, there is an expectation that interest rates will rise, or, you know, especially with the inflationary challenges that the economy is currently under. So the moral of the story for me is to really get on with it as quick as we can. But as you say, every single project has to stand alone with its own viability assessment. Okay, thank you. Cheers, Damien. Any other questions? Any other questions from members of the public? Right, so we've adopted and accepted the recommendations from the additional recommendations from the Scrutiny Committee last night, and bear with me, and then we're being asked to, 2 seconds, colleagues, it's on paper. We've been asked to accept the final report and that the action plan within the report is approved for delivery. I've proposed, Mick, you've seconded that. Everyone in favour? Thank you, that's unanimous. Moving on, agenda item 8, the South Ribble Annual Performance Report 2020-2021. Colleagues won't recognise this because the council hasn't produced one of these before, but we thought it was important that all members of the council and our key stakeholders and our community actually see the work and the performance of the local authority here in South Ribble. I've been really pleased and proud of the performance of the council, the officers, the members and our wider community through the pandemic. The pandemic's been appalling for so many people. It's been massively challenging for everyone, but still through that the council in South Ribble has shone in many areas, and so it's only appropriate and only right that we share some of the progress and some of the fantastic work that our officers and our members have done throughout the community. A typical week, I found this very interesting. A typical week, it's in the appendix there, that we answer at West Paddock just short of 2,000 calls from members of our community. We recycle over 400 tonnes of household waste. We spend £10,000 a week on disabled grants. We process the team there, 18 planning applications. We receive over 700 requests for self-service through the website. We plant at least 326 trees every single week. We prevent 7 people from becoming homeless on average. And we receive, astonishingly this one, just 10,500 visits to the council's website. And on the back of that as well, the COVID community response as well. We've made available over 7,000 grants, individual grants that we haven't brought any extra staff in. This is the current staff who've delivered these. They've issued over £35 million to our local businesses. As I say, 13,000 businesses supported and £31 million in business rate relief. And that's just a couple of examples. We should be proud of what we have in South Ribble. We should be proud of the officers, and we should be proud of the key collaborations that we have with our partners. And this is just the start. We want to do more, and I think if we can deliver this through a pandemic, we can deliver anything, in my view, and we really should just keep going for it. So we're going to the plan is now to publish this report. We're going to get this out far and wide, and let's not rest on our laurels. This is the baseline now, as far as I'm concerned, and every year now we must look to improve further. I'm not intending now, because it's out in the public domain now, to go through every other area of the report, but we're asked just to consider it now and note it and publish it. Any comments, colleagues?
I'm really pleased we've done this. Like you say, it's not something that we've done in the past, but it does help to focus your mind really on, I mean, the statistics that you just quoted, because we do all get caught on the hamster wheel of just getting on with things and doing things and never really considering exactly what it is that the council does. And when you see the figures like that, this is what we do, not every year, this is what we do in a typical week. And it does actually illustrate just what a leading role we have in our local community. And I think sometimes it's easy to take your mind off that. But I really like it. I think it's easy to read. It's bright. It breaks things down into nice, understandable blocks. And as you said, I think considering everything else that went on in 2021, it gives us an awful lot to be proud of.
Thanks, Matt. I was given an astonishing stat the other day as well, and I'm looking at Jenny's. I think for our school kids within the borough, I think we've provided over 50,000 meals. So that's the council. The council has provided over the past 16 months, is it, Jen? I'm looking now. Over the last 16 months, we've provided over 50,000 meals for our school kids. That's something we should all be very proud of. Any other comments? No, any comments from members not on committee? No, good. So I don't think actually. I think we're just asked to note that report and let's get it out there and on the website and in the community. Right, moving on. So agenda item 9 is the Business Recovery Post-COVID Member Working Group update. And I'll ask Councillor Bill Evans, the Cabinet Member for Planning, Business Support and Regeneration. Bill.
Thanks, Leader. The idea of this report is to let you know about the activity and actions of the Business Recovery Member Working Group following the final meeting in August. There's 2 recommendations on the report. The Cabinet note the contents of the report and congratulate the group and the officers for the work over the past 18 months, and also that Cabinet support the recommendations arising from the group, which will be the subject of further discussions and reports for key decisions. They're all listed at paragraph 21 in the report. Because the group's business is done, it's been decided that we don't need the group anymore, but it can be reconvened at any time should it be needed. We were charged by the government to deliver grants to small businesses and those in retail, hospitality and leisure sectors. And more recently, the council has been delivering discretionary grants as well. They first met in June 2020 and have met 18 times since. And the 4 members have been supported by the Director of Planning and Development and representatives from Investment and Skills, Finance and Revenues and Benefits teams. As listed there, they've paid out £34.9 million worth of grants to local businesses, which is quite an amount. There's been over 7,000 individual grant payments made to over 2,000 individual businesses, and 19 different grant schemes have been managed and delivered. Another good thing is that because they were so good at what they did and delivering all the government requirements at the time they should have done, it meant that the council has received an additional £706,699 of funding through the ARG programme, which is absolutely tremendous. You know, because we hit our targets, they give us more. And I'm not going to go through all the list on paragraph 21, just pull out 1 or 2 of the recommendations. I mean, one of them, providing support for mental health within the business community for our employees and employers. So, which is quite, you know, quite a good thing. People forget, you know, the pressure that some of these people have been under over the last 18 months. And we're going to hold a business forum shortly to engage with the micro and the small and medium enterprise businesses with a view to shaping our support. So with that, Chair, I'll recommend to Cabinet the two recommendations. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. I remember this working group, and I thank all the individual members, Jay Flannery, the chair, Will Adams, David Howarth and Phil Smith, who all came together. I remember getting a call off Councillor Jay Flannery right at the onset of the pandemic, because it was clear to us that the impact this was having, not just on our community, but on our businesses, was really quite profound. And we needed to do something about it, and we just didn't necessarily have the answers. And this isn't a criticism of the government, but they weren't necessarily focusing, and I know you'll agree with this, Warren, as well, hopefully, that in certain areas with some of the initiatives that they were trying to deliver, and that isn't a criticism, it was a pandemic, it was fast moving. And so I asked Jay on right, the Cabinet needs some help with this, we need councillors from all parties to come together, forget the politics, and let's just see what we really need to do to get the assistance direct to our businesses. At the same time, we're all getting numerous calls all the time from different businesses across the borough desperate for assistance. And so the work that Jay, Will, David and Phil did was tremendous. They've got experience in business, they're embedded in the communities, and the Cabinet really genuinely do thank you for your efforts, all your efforts over the last 12 months, because it has had a huge impact locally. And hopefully you would agree as well. We haven't looked to interfere. We've asked for you to genuinely work with the officers, work with the business community, and provide the recommendations, advice to us, what is the best way that we can support one another. And it's worked well, and it's worked really well. And we've seen a huge number of businesses. And you know what? One of the things that really pleased me personally was there's a huge amount of small SMEs in South Ribble. Loads of really small micro businesses that were just being missed, and through the efforts of the working group, who sat there tirelessly, as you say, they might have only had the formal 19 meetings, but I know they were discussing it a lot outside of that as well. They got the money, and it wasn't always money, or the support to these local businesses, and I have no doubt whatsoever that we have businesses in South Ribble who are still functioning today because of the work of this working group, and for that, we're eternally grateful. And let's just be clear, we've not asked for this to end, it's just come to its natural conclusion where we are in the cycle of the pandemic. And as Councillor Evans says, Bill Evans has said, if we need to reinstigate the working group, we'll be straight across and asking you to come and support and help us again. So heartfelt thanks to the working group from the Cabinet, not just from the Cabinet, but from the businesses that we've managed to support. Any other questions from my points from Cabinet? Any? No. Oh, Nick, sorry.
Well, just referring back to the peer review, when they were talking about cross-party working and sort of working on that, I think this is a supreme example of cross-party working where it's worked for the benefit of the community. I think, when we well, we're not through it, but we're past, we're over the worst of the pandemic, hopefully. But sometimes you forget how really, really desperate it was during that period and that period of lockdown. And my praise for this group couldn't be higher, because they really stepped up to the plate in the most difficult of circumstances. And I think they probably, when you alluded to it, Leader, the support that's being given to some of those businesses has meant the difference between survival and just death in a business sense. So it's just out of a really, really bad situation. It's a good news story about how cross-party working can benefit the community, and it really is a job well done, and I congratulate all of them involved.
Thanks, Vic. Any members not on Cabinet? Jay, got anything to?
and Jonathan, Jennifer, the officers, who were brilliant. Everyone come together regularly. We were focused on what we had to do, and it was very, very complex, to be honest. The way the money was coming in wasn't simple. There was different funds, different strands. The officers done a fantastic job getting them out. So, yeah, so thanks for the kind words. Well, the most important thing is our businesses have been supported. So, well done for the cabinet for supporting.
Thanks, Jay. Any other comments from members?
Sorry, it's just on page 76, it mentions Walton Lee Dalton, and I'm just wondering if that could be, oh sorry, it's on the next item, I apologise.
Any members not in cabinet? Sorry, any members of the public have any comments? No? Right. So, Cabinet's asked to note the contents of the report and can we obviously congratulate the group on the work over the past 18 months, and then we're asked to support the recommendations arising from the group, which will be in the subject of future discussions report for key decisions, and they're contained, colleagues, within paragraph 21 on page 72 of the pack. Are we all happy to support those? Yeah, and you're the second of that? Unanimous? Yep, thank you. Right, moving on. Agenda item 10 is the progress in the climate emergency and air quality, and that's the report of Councillor Mick Titherington, the Deputy Leader and Cabinet Member for Health and Wellbeing.
Thank you, Leader. I think it's probably timely that this paper is brought before us. It is for noting, and it is for reporting about where we're at and the various things that we're up to in relation to the climate change. I mean, it is topical because you know, we've got the COP26 coming up in Glasgow in the next couple of weeks. I think we all realise now the desperate situation that we're in relation to climate change and the effect that it has on the planet and mankind. And I think it's vitally important that we do play our part. I think individuals and businesses and the whole collective organisations, we all have a part to play. I think as far as South Ribble is concerned, we did pass a climate emergency motion to seek to decarbonise the borough by 2030, and since then we've been working towards that goal. Again, it's another example of cross-party working, because we have got a climate emergency task group under the chairship of Councillor Keith Martin, and they have been meeting regularly and considering all different ways in which we can pursue our aim of achieving decarbonisation or neutral by 2030. We have established, the Council has established a climate emergency strategy, and we've got a climate emergency action plan. I think the report sets out the activities that we've done today. I mean, when I've reported to Council previously, I've been at pains to emphasise that it's not something that we can do alone, and we need to engage with partners, with governments and other partners and businesses, as I've referred to. So, I mean, what we're seeking to do, I mean, I think we recognise, that the task group recognised, that if we're going out and sort of seeking the assistance of other partners and businesses to do something in terms of cutting down on their carbon emissions, is then not what we need to do, is to show a lead. And that's why what we're concentrating on is seeking a grant from central government so that we can decarbonise our, what we call the Big Six. That's the Civic Centre, the leisure centres and the Moss Side depot. And it is a start, but I mean, I think we've already started on the Civic Centre, and we hopefully, if we're successful in getting these grants, we can go ahead and do the same with the leisure centres. There's a number of areas which need to be tackled. you know, homes, heating homes and other methods of heating. But in terms of the grants and applying for grants, then that's contained within there. What the task group has been doing as well, in terms of looking at energy cooperatives and a whole host of things, is all contained within there. I mean, I'm not going to go through all of it. Just to say is that the task group and the council is determined to do everything it can to reach that goal of being carbon neutral in 2030. And it's, you know, we were talking before about you know, business survival, and we're now talking about planet survival. So it's in all our interests to do what we can as individuals, as you know, collectives, and as the council. And I think in presenting this report and the update, it shows that we are endeavouring to take the lead in achieving, you know, playing our part in the climate emergency. Thank you, Chair.
Cheers, cheers, Mick. And I know that the moment that the ink's dry on these reports, there's something new happening somewhere, because it's really gaining some momentum now across the globe, isn't it? At last, the issues that we face, and I know we've got COP, is it 26 coming up? Is it this month? I think, isn't it, up in Glasgow? Let's hope some positives, real positives, come from that, because we need to get a grip of this. And I think one of the points from the cabinet, Mick, isn't it, that these action plans are in place now, but they're constantly under review. And the moment we can do more, we will do more. We're just not sitting back. And that obviously, Mick, we thank you and your colleagues in the offices for the work that you continually are doing with this. There's a lot to do, and it's a key corporate priority. Any comments, Matthew?
Thanks, and I'd add my congratulations to every member of the task group who's worked on this. I think it's really important work. Ahead of COP26, is it COP20? I read a really interesting article, and someone said, this isn't a planet emergency, it's a human emergency, because the planet will still be here. The planet will heat up for a bit, and then it'll cool down again in 15, 20,000 years. But we might not be here in 15, 20,000 years. So I think if you frame it as a planet emergency, that's probably the wrong way to look at it, because the Earth will carry on. It's just whether it'll still be a nice place for us to live or not. And I also recognise that what South Ribble Borough Council does in the scheme of things is not great. But in terms of leadership and in terms of doing your bit, I think it's really important that everybody does what they can. Another startling statistic in the same article, 15% of all greenhouse gases comes from the meat industry. So, you know, we criticise coal quite rightly and oil quite rightly when there's other things, but it's such a complex picture. It's such a complex picture, and that's why we all have to carry on doing our bit, whether that's just walking a bit further or cycling a bit further, or as my dad used to say, put a jumper on. Turn that heating down and put a jumper on. I've turned into my dad years ago, so it don't matter. But it's all those, you know, if we all do all those little things, we can contribute a bit. But I think some of the work that's been done here is absolutely to be commended, and I want to have my thanks to every member of the committee.
Yeah, cheers. Your dad must have a bit of an odd accent, Matt. Never mind. It's the right. So we've obviously got the amendment, Damien. I don't know where the hell Walton-le-Dale is. Sorry, Walton-le-Dalton. Yeah. Dalton's near Barrow. Yeah. So we'll change that to Walton-le-Dale. Any comments from any members not on committee, Karen?
Good evening, everyone. We fully support the climate emergency agenda and commend the work that's already been done. I have found a few actual more because spelling mistakes, because I don't like to sing posted, and where's the other one? You know what I'm like, Borough and 2 on page 87. There's some spelling mistakes beside the point. Just I have concerns about item 17, which is the measures identified with the the Air Quality Action Plan, which was introduced in 2018. And I know we've asked for this at scrutiny update. It says many of the measures identified within the action plan have been completed. It would have been nice for some examples for this. I know Jennifer has said that she's going to give an update, but I just think it might have been nice to have some examples, because I think it's an issue that many residents in the borough have concerns with. Okay, okay. Yeah, yes. Okay.
We'll take that on board.
All right.
Any other questions for anyone? Margaret?
Sorry, Councillor Smith, can you come to the microphone, because we're webcasting and your public can't hear you.
Thank you. If you were looking for the singing and sign, if you didn't catch it from Councillor Walton, it's on page 79 and it's number 42, and it says occupiers will be sing, not sign. So unless somebody's got a good voice. It's just further on down that page. It's number 44, and it's talking about the 4.5 million pounds that we are going to obviously ask government for some grants towards the decarbonisation of the Big Six. And the bottom line, it says the technology is like replacements, i.e. fossil fuel heating systems for another fossil fuel heating system. And I didn't quite understand, if we're trying to get rid of the fossil fuel heating system, why we're going to replace it with another one.
Yeah, I mean, that seems to me rather daft. I mean, I think the decarbonisation plan, I think it was fully debated at council when we were ready to have it to present. I mean, that decarbonisation plan that was discussed at council has been presented to government. It is, I mean, because of the amendments that we've had to make, it's working out about a 3.2 million grant. But the actual, technicalities of, of that, I'd have to refer to the decarbonisation plan, that, the grants that we presented.
Sorry, that's fine. Thank you very much. Obviously, the less three pointers against 4.9 million is very welcome. But if you could actually come back to me as to why we are putting another fossil fuel system in when we're trying to get rid of one, because I'm not quite sure.
Leader, if I could be helpful, I think it's just a clumsily written sentence. Well, it's not a typo, it's a clumsily written sentence. And what they're saying is any contribution from the council would be the equivalent as if we were replacing a fossil fuel system with another fossil fuel system, which we're not. But they would expect us to contribute as though we were. So if, for instance, if you're getting rid of a gas boiler and replace it with one of these new, I can't even remember what they call them now, but they're these new domestic boilers that aren't gas, are £5,000 to £6,000 per house. Now, what they're saying is, it's almost as though I apply for a grant, and the grant I get would still need, I would have to contribute as though I was getting a gas boiler, but the grant would cover the difference. I accept it's clumsily written, but we're clearly not replacing a fossil fuel heating system with another fossil fuel heating system.
I didn't think we were.
No.
But what I'm thinking is, this is a document that is actually in the public domain.
Yeah, I accept it's
And
not
therefore, I
that
think
well
it needs
worded.
to be
Yeah.
clearly stated exactly what we are doing and not putting another fossil fuel system in. Thank you.
Good points, Margaret, thank you. Right, any other questions? Any points from anyone? Right, Cabinet's asked to note the progress that's been achieved towards the Council's net zero goal and completion of the air quality and climate emergency action plans. So we've noted those. Yeah. Yeah, Mick, do you want to do anything else? No?
Well, you know, I've just been reminded that what we will be doing is applying to join the UK 100, which is we will be joining together with other authorities to see how we can come together to advance that you know, climate change emergency. And I think we'll be coming forward with proposals on that in the near future.
Perfect. Thanks, Mick. So happy to note the report, colleagues? Yep. So I do believe that's the agenda finished. So thank you very much to all members of the public, officers and councillors who've attended the meeting tonight. The next meeting of the Cabinet will be back at the Civic Centre, and I believe the next Cabinet in the community is going to be with our colleagues in Penwitham in approximately 6 months' time, I think. Darren, yeah? Okay. Oh, yes, sorry, Darren's asking you, please fill your forms in if you get a moment just before you leave. Right, thanks everyone and good evening.